Welcome to Retaining the Tech Savvy Generation, COVID edition, online presentation. Thank you for joining. I'm excited to be able to present this information. This is a session that I have given at many conferences for many years about recruitment and retention and how technology feeds into reaching the students of today. And now, of course, it's never more important to really reach students using technology. So this, of course, is the COVID adaptation of the online presentation of this session. So let's jump right in and begin. I've been through a lot of different careers in the music industry. Always wanted to be a music educator, investing in technology through many different forms, starting the first music tech program in Louisiana with some of these angels you see here on this picture. I have a degree in education administration. I've worked in assessment standards. I've worked in the music industry. And of course, I'm a very strong advocate for music education. And through all of these various paths, I've been able to learn something really important in that everything we do is about advocating for music education. It's about recruitment and retention, not only in our programs, but recruiting and retaining more musicians, more lives that we can change through music. And that's what's really key. Everything we do is about engaging students and keeping them as lifelong music makers and lifelong better human beings, because music changes lives. That's what's important here. Now, as we know, students consume music with technology. They consume everything with technology. Families consume music with technology. Students are obsessed with devices. But I do want to think about how this impacts the way we approach music and the way students approach music. Because how did we consume music? Technology has a massive effect on how we consume things. So how did we consume music? Well, some of us use record players. You start the record from the beginning, you listen, you flip it, you go to the other side, and you call it a day. You listen to an album top to bottom. Trying to, drop the needle and find different songs was a little tricky. We can do it, but it was a top to bottom approach. Now, copying records, creating mixtapes, none of that happened until we got the cassette player, right? Then the mixtape was born. Not only music becomes portable, we have the Walkman, the Kevin McAllister Talkboy. We have the ability to high-speed dub and copy over and make mixtapes. But as consumers, music got more portable, and we got more choice in how we could listen to music and choose what songs we want to put on the same tape. Now, skip ahead, see what I did there, to the Discman. Suddenly now the CD player came along. Now, beyond the skips and bumps and tracks and all of that, the idea of CD player gave us shuffle play. It gave us repeat the same song over and over and over indefinitely. It allowed us to skip a track on an album with one click. Not a fast forward and try to stop at the right place, but suddenly we as consumers could choose and mix up music all together. And then we could download music. Remember Napster? Mom, get off the phone. I gotta log on to the internet. I've gotta download one song and 18 viruses over the next 8 hours. Please let me get on, Then we started putting our music in digital format on these MP3 players and iPods, and they got bigger and bigger and bigger, not necessarily in size, but in capacity, right? Let's put 100 songs, 1,000 songs, 10,000 songs, 20 gigabytes, 40 gigabytes, 80 gigabytes. I need all of my music at the palm of my hand, right? And now we just go right to a streaming solution, right? Students only know the streaming solution. They know that they live in a world where they can pick music based on how they feel. They can pick music based on what's the most popular song and the most people have listened to it. They can go find an artist and listen to their playlist of what they like. They have so much choice and freedom in what's popular and what's driven, right? And artists are not necessarily making full albums anymore like we did with records. They're trying to get to the number one most popular thing on any given day or time, so that they can have popularity and be able to tour when touring is allowed again and things like that. But so the idea of how we consume music and how our students consume music is very different. And think about how that changes our approaches, because we're coming from two different places. And just understanding that there's a difference in approach and a disconnect is important, because that's how we reach students and retain them in the world in which they live. Now, it's not just music. How did we learn, right? More importantly, how did education impact the way we educate and reach and retain students using technology. We all knew the rule. We had our notebooks, whether it's a Trapper Keeper or the wide space or the small space notebook. How many notebooks did you have to buy? One per class, and number 2 pencils. We've all been the supply list, right? The rule was the teacher writes it on the board, you write it on the notes, right? Is this going to be on the test? Is this going to be on the test? Do I have to write that down? Should we write that down? Oh, write that down, right? That's how we learned. Teacher had master of knowledge. They used a piece of chalk on a chalkboard to write information, and we had to copy it down by hand. And then some great technology like the overhead projector, which was nothing more than the same heat lamp used at the Golden Corral for the roast beef over a piece of glass with a mirror reflecting it, right? Really ingenious technology here. And suddenly, teachers could now write, instead of a chalkboard, write on those transparencies. They could save them. They could use them for different classes. They could pull up a printed version of the quiz that you have, and you could see it in real time. One little piece of technology changed the ability for teachers to move faster, to communicate better. Students could go and write things on transparencies, and teachers could display them. So I just want to point out that we learned in education based on the technology that was available at the time. And the technology available at the time was a teacher-focused, teacher-led classroom with students following approach. Technology affects pedagogy. How do our students learn today? Well, they have Chromebooks and iPads and Google Classroom, and they go on the internet and they go on apps where they connect with each other. They do silly dances and they all sorts of things. That's the world in which they live. And the danger is that we create this disconnect, right? There's a disconnect in how students consume information and how we consume information. Because if you think about traditional education, it's always been teacher focused, right? We are used to that. And as human beings, when we approach new technologies, new opportunities, we naturally start with what we've done in the past, what we're comfortable with, right? Experience is a wonderful thing. But if we only try to learn and innovate within the lens of only our experiences and only the experiences we have with the technology that we used in the past, we never progress forward. So our experiences are a wonderful thing, but they're also the thing that can limit us the most, right? And think about online learning. Let's take a trip back to March of 2020, right? La da 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 da, this is all going to be fine. Nope, it's not going to be fine. We have to go online. We have to figure out these tools. So we did what we did. But if you look at what education did, it essentially still had whole class lecture-based instruction delivered online. What did we go to? I conduct an ensemble. I have to do a virtual ensemble. Is there software where I can conduct and all kids can play at the same time? We went in the Facebook groups and we tried over and over and over again. And we still ask, has anyone invented a software to allow me what I've always done in a whole class environment, but also do it online in the same way without having to try something new? It doesn't exist. And even if it did exist, it would not be as effective. Online is a delivery mechanism. In class is a delivery mechanism. These are locations of people, right? But most importantly, that our pedagogy and instruction has to really match what the delivery mechanism and opportunities are, right? So even what we did do in class, what is best delivered in class is not best delivered online. What's best delivered online is not best delivered on class. So let's think differently, right? Let's think differently about how we grab these students. So online learning is not new. We've seen the model of the flipped classroom for quite a while, right? Students can use technology. They can access information and have interactive, creative abilities before they walk into class. So they can walk into class with knowledge, and the class time can be used as an effective time to be able to discuss and celebrate and learn from each other, not have to only get knowledge in the classroom. So the flipped classroom has been a long time approach, but this concept of being able to learn without having a teacher instructing to at all times is certainly not new. We also have the hybrid learning model, right? Very much used in higher ed, where your entire course is constructed around in-class and online opportunities that fit. And there's a course, the middles, where the hybrid approach comes in, but you are relying on both types of materials because there's information that fits both opportunities. And that's exactly where we should go. These weren't made up in March of 2020, right? But there are differences, right? And what did COVID taught us? And what is it continuing to teach us? Well, even if in class, students need to be distanced for safety, right? Online whole group calls in person are really hard. You can't monitor breakout rooms. You can't see all your students at the same time. And of course, as we've seen for months and months and months, and we will continue to see, we're in class, we're online, we're in class, we're online, seventh grade's home for 2 weeks. I mean, it's going to keep changing, right? But the key thing is that engagement and motivation, that's what we realize, wow, I can't get my students engaged when they're at a home in front of a Chromebook staring at a screen all day. How do I do that, right? What I would encourage you is this, thinking this through and thinking about online learning is not new. It's been around. Musical applications, creating music online, it's not new. Students connecting and living in an online world is not new. But suddenly COVID happens and we have to go online and we try to do these temporary measures. Look, think beyond temporary. I'm gonna let you know, as you may know me already, I'm a huge country music fan, and Carrie Underwood sang one of her many amazing songs was, of course, Temporary Home. And this, we cannot think temporary. We cannot continue to approach online learning as I just need to put up some lessons until normal comes back. I don't know what normal is anymore. And I think what I do know is that there is a place forever, and there has always been a place, and I have been advocating for this long before March of 2020. There is a place for online learning and active creation and music using web-based tools that allow us to collaborate and connect. That's always existed. And so if you've never used those and you've never taken those opportunities to learn yourself and rethink how you can approach students using those tools, and now you're just trying to just resist and limp along and just do what you can to just put up what you did on a Google Classroom or on Canvas or Schoology, you're probably feeling like this. This is what a lot of people feel like. If you're frustrated, if you feel stuck, I'm telling you, you're trying to put the square peg in the round hole. You're trying to take what's always worked in class and jam it online, and it isn't fitting, right? But it does fit. There's opportunities that work, and we just have to find what works. So this is a Malinczak made-up formula, but this idea of a delivery mechanism and available technology with motivation, there's a balance here. This is not necessarily an equation that this plus this times this equals this. I'm going for the balanced equation approach, right? This whole thing gets balanced. So this idea of you're safe in class, you can sing, you can spread your droplets and aerosols, and you get to go perform and safely. Yes, whole class instruction, learning to play songs and learning to sing songs and perform those absolutely makes sense. But when you're online and you have instruments, voices, and applications, technology, and you're motivated by learning opportunities, right? When you don't have performance opportunities, there's individualized instruction here. Individualized instruction matters. It's not a new concept. It is about goal setting and students setting their own goals and being responsible for their own learning. And this can happen in traditional music education, learning to play an instrument, learning to sing with others. There's so much individualized instruction available, and online tools allow students to set their own goals so they can be more productive members of an ensemble, right? So there's a balance here, and it involves stakeholders. The thing about individualized instruction that we think about is it's effective online or in person. When a student comes to a rehearsal, they need to still have goals that they're holding themselves accountable for their position and their responsibility to that ensemble, right? And online in person matters. So it's not dependent on delivery mechanism. And this is an opportunity for self-reflection and self-confidence. This is what individualized instruction does for us. It lets us have students reflect and articulate about their individualized learning. And that is the key. We are trying to motivate students. And if we can use technology and actively engage them to do that, that's what's really exciting. So in this case, students get self-motivated by goals, whether goals they set or you set with them, right? They are actively creating. Students have to be actively creating music. They are not engaged by using Google Slides to take a quiz or watch a YouTube video and write a paragraph on what you thought of the performance. They need to be creating music. They need to be doing. They need to be playing. They need to be dragging loops and Soundtrap and making music. They need to be composing with Noteflight. They need to be recording themselves playing. They have to be doing, right? That's where engagement comes from. If you're struggling to have your students be engaged in your musical lessons and your lessons are not having students do anything but listen to a lecture and take a quiz, that's it. That's what's happening. Students are engaged by actively doing. They can collaborate. Individualized is not isolated. Online is not isolated, right? Web-based tools allow us to collaborate and connect from anywhere, right? And so we start to assess students on their learning, not just their products. Now, this sounds great, I know. And you think about it. Let's think about, music class in general, retention, recruitment, in a performance-based ensemble. There's some things traditionally, and I'm not pointing any fingers, but I would just think back to maybe the way you learned music, or let's just think on a generalization. After years in a music class, can students leave that class at any point, find music and arrange for their voice and instrument? Can an alto saxophone player listen to a song on the radio and love it and want to play it on their instrument, but they don't understand how to make it 6 notes higher so it matches the same notes, right? Can they do that, right? Can they find and arrange that music? Do students know how to record and video themselves? Yes, we can pull up the phone. Do we know how to set levels? Do we know what type of mic to use? Do we know how to roughly edit the things out? Do we know how to share music as a upload to YouTube, or maybe make an MP4 or MP, other different file types? Can they record themselves and share it? Do students know how to listen to music with real deeper experience and understanding? Or, they only understand why a crescendo is valuable in that one piece they were playing to get a superior at festival? Or do they recognize that how crescendos and how different harmonies will affect music in general, right? Can students collaborate in music making online? Can they connect with any one of their peers and make music at any time online? And last, and not at all least, I'll say last and most, right? Can students enjoy playing or creating music by themselves without ever having to be assigned to do so, right? And that's a big one. Some days I've been, picking up my instruments. I have them all right here, and I'll just play some notes. And it sometimes feels a little weird, like I have to have an etude. My teacher has to assign me. I have to come back and play it for a test. Or is it okay to just tinker and play music for fun, right? But if we never assign students that, that's an issue, right? So if a student only believes music making is part of a class when a teacher assigns it, then it's hard to retain them as music makers for life, because we're not just retaining them in our programs, we're retaining them as musicians and musical advocates for life. That's what we're retaining, and that's what's important. So if you're with me and you're nodding your head and you're like sipping your coffee, like, yes, it's an excuse to sip my coffee. Then you ask yourself the question, why has this not been part of music curriculums all along? And I think it's because we had only whole class performance. We were so keeping going. We had all this technology, but it didn't fit into the traditional flow of the school year. And so we never had the opportunity to really focus on this. But now we do, right? Now we have a whole year where individualized instruction and individualized performance makes sense. So let's spend this year focusing on arranging music for voice and instruments. Let's teach students what transposition means from the word go. Look, transposition is a barrier for any transposing instrumentalist. But here's the thing. Have you seen 5th grade math? Do you know how hard that is? Go grab a 5th grade math book. If students can do the other things they're doing in math and science and academic subjects, they can understand the basics of the circle of fifths and key signatures and stepwise motion. Like, it is very, very accessible to a 10-year-old. We just have to make an effort to teach it at that time, right? And we avoid it. But we need students to not have barriers to making music because their instrument may or may not have the same sound when it toots a G, right? So we need to teach students all of these skills, right? because music technology is not just about using all of these different components and all of these different apps. Music technology is about creating music. It's about having a comprehensive course where students can lead instruction, where we're focusing on projects, but we're process focused. Through the learning happens through the process of creating music. Music technology and online tools, and it allows us to collaborate. It allows students to give each other feedback. It allows them to grow musically individually, right? So all assignments, in my opinion, are about collaboration, feedback, and growth. Music technology also is an opportunity to bring in popular music and culturally diverse music. We can bring in and create and collaborate around and learn music from the music of any culture, from any composer, from anyone, right? So we do not have to keep going down the same path that we went to in college of only classical, Western classic music notation, music curriculum that's very much based on old dead white European guys. I'm not sitting here and going to say that the music of Beethoven and Mozart and Bach is not wonderful, but it is not the only thing, and we have to empower students. We have to force ourselves to address diversity, both in the music of all the cultures, but also the diversity of the people making those music. And that's where music creation does, because we're not beholden to any certain curriculum. It is our opportunity to reach out and use the music by anyone, from anyone, to teach music. So let's think about some steps of how we can create music in this world, how we can use all of this technology and engage this tech-savvy generation in creating music, right? And this is a little bit different than what we're used to, because a lot of us, when we were in music school, we learned with pencil and paper, and we had old technology. Back to the beginning of this presentation, right? We tend to approach teaching through the lens of how we were taught, and we have to break that cycle. So, creating music, short lessons. Composition lessons does not have to be large, time-consuming. You don't have to learn 2 semesters of theory. You can just write an 8-measure melody, and you can add to it each week. You can scaffold, right? You can do it that way. Also, build off what you have. Nobody says composition and creating music has to be original and start with a blank slate. If you're learning to perform music, you can bring in the music of diverse composers. You can bring in melodies of songs that students are listening to on the radio, whatever it is. Use those to manipulate, change, write ultimates, write countermeasures, reharmonize. Take music that is known and deconstruct it, play with it. A melody is like Play-Doh. You can mold it and form it and change it. So even on a notation app, moving notes up and down, adding other notes, bringing in a beat and soundtrack, whatever it is, you have an opportunity to let students create and play with music. It doesn't have to be compose something original, right? Focus on musical skills. We're aiming towards musical skills. We want students to learn about music, harmony, melody, form, texture, all of these things. So you can do a form lesson with loops. You can do a harmony lesson by having students take a melody and add some notes that sound good with it, right? Create first and then focus them on learning, but they learn by actively engaging. Create, perform, respond, connect in every lesson. Too often, when we use technology and we have students creating something, we check off the create box. Anchor standards 1, 2, and 3. And we sort of forget about perform, respond, connect. But it's all in there. A music creation lesson, performing is also presenting. Students presenting their music to others and talking about it, responding and giving peer review to each other's music, to other things, connecting to why this music is made in the first place, whether it's a human emotion or whether it's somewhere in society, to a career skill. All of this is cyclical, right? I think create, perform, respond, connect is a cycle, and I think it starts with connect, create, respond, perform. If I had to put them in order, they can happen in different ways, but I just have never experienced through myself or through teaching a place where you are creating music without responding, connecting, and presenting, performing at the same time. So do not ignore these. A lesson is not just do a thing and turn into a teacher. That respond, connect, perform, present part is how we get more out of lessons, because composing an 8-measure melody is fine, but that's not the point, right? The point is about learning about melody and maybe learning about what it is to have a mid-space breath, and how to end on a tonic, and how to create a strong melody that's memorable and a hook and all of that, and discussing that and having students review each other's melodies and talking about it and talking about all the different things you can use to make a melody stronger, dynamics, articulations, things like that. those discussions, that process, that back and forth, that's where learning happens, right? It's so important that students are communicating. And last but not least, and I will say again, last and most, build confidence. Students need confidence by creating. As music teachers, we give students confidence in performance by jumping up and down on the podium, being silly, do whatever it takes. Come on, you can do it. Yes, you guys are great. All right, stretch it out. Here we go. One more time. We're going to do this better than ever. Think of 3 things you're going to make better this time, and we're going to make this so awesome. It's going to be the best time. We know the speech. We've all done it, right? And we're all really good at it. Music creation is the same, except we're not going to sit over top of the kid on their Chromebook like, come on, add one more note. Yes, okay, put a second edit in there. Wow, like it's different, right? And confidence is about the way we give feedback to their assignments. When a student creates something, that's great, that's wonderful. Did you share it with your mama? We create a culture of creating music effectively, right? And I talk about this in my other session, the Arrow and a G Suite, the Google session. I talk a lot about creativity and assessment in that session. So whether or not you use Google, check out that other one. It'll be really, really valuable. Now, moving forward, let's talk about recruitment and retention, right? Retaining the tech-savvy generation. 2 things that are traditionally a problem. 1, barrier to entry. Traditionally, there's a thing called scheduling in schools. You may or may not have heard of it. That was sarcasm. And if an 8th grader wants to suddenly learn an instrument, can they take the 6th grade beginning band class? Nope, it's not offered at the 8th grade elective time. Sorry, not sorry. If an 11th grader decides they want to join choir, is the only time in their schedule available the advanced choir that they can't join in? Like, we have these barriers, right? But here's the thing. How can we break them down? How can we use technology? If a student can only be in that class, put them in the class. Pair them up with the student to do private lessons. Rotate them around. Let them use some technology to create performance, but find a way to break down the barriers. I know they're not easy, but on a lot of cases, have you ever just tried to make friends with the scheduler at your school and said, hey, can you not put the AP classes at the same time as the advanced music class? Because it's always going to be the same kids. Shocking. Have you ever asked that question to your schedule? Because they're probably not doing it to be malicious and try to make music education hard. They probably just might have never thought about it. So let's take action and think about it. But also, why does the barrier to entry even have to be wanting to take a music class at all? Right now, if your school is still all online, why can't you create a 2-minute video with a lesson that every child in the school can do? Everyone's stressed at doing online learning. It's constant screen over and over again. What about a lesson where you encourage students to make a playlist that they can listen to, 1 song, 5 minutes on top of the hour, to keep them relaxed and separate them, and tell them to use music as a way to break up the day of online learning and keep them emotionally pumped up, and create a playlist that can be songs to pump you up. You can talk about rhythm and speed and things like that. You can create a playlist of songs to chill you out, and you could have students do this, and you can give it to your administration and say, hey, I made a lesson that uses music to help students with their emotions and help them be able to focus on their longer school day. Can we just put this as a module in Canvas, Schoology, Moodle, Google Classroom somewhere for other teachers to use? Can we just send this? I put it as a YouTube link. Can we just send this video out to all the teachers and let them use this in their class? You have an opportunity to teach music to every student, right? So let's break down the barriers to entry and let's teach music to every student, right? Perceptions after exit. This is the other one. So many times students, they will at some point leave the music program. They might make it all the way to 12th grade and go off to college and may or may not minor in music or play in the band or whatever, or sing in the choir, or they may stop music in 10th grade, or they may stop in 9th grade. There's so many points where students are not retained, and a lot of reasons there. But let's focus not as much on the retention and all the reasons we have to keep kids in music no matter what, which is important, but what's their perception? Because they will exit at some point. And when they exit, back to that list of individual musical skills I put up earlier, do they believe when they stop doing music class that they're no longer in music? Because a lot of them do, right? Music is not soccer. It's not football. It's not the basketball team. Like, you can play music on your own. You can still connect with others and make music. You can still be an advocate for the arts and musician. But if all our students ever do is play in an ensemble and play the rep that the teacher gives them, when they don't have the ensemble and they don't have the teacher, guess what? music's done. We have to change that perception. Students, anyone as an adult that played music in middle school or high school can pull their instrument out, go online, find a cool song and play it. Why not? Not because they can't do it, because we don't traditionally teach that. So this idea of retaining the tech-savvy generation is not just about retaining them in our programs, but retaining them as lifelong musicians. Because too often the recruitment and retention conversation happens at looking at our numbers, and we recruit to get the right balance of the ensemble, or our freshman numbers are down, so we got to recruit more, right? We recruit to fill the program, and then we look at sort of like the drop off of students and how do we retain more and more, right? And what we tend to do, and I'm saying we because I've done this too, but I'm going to drop a little truth bomb here. We stop recruiting and we stop retaining. We stop recruiting and we stop retaining when our programs are full. So what are we advocating for? We're advocating for our jobs, right? Why do we stop, instead of advocating for music for all students all the time? Why can't the whole school be in music, right? So why can't we advocate for a second music teacher or a third music teacher? Why can't we get so many kids that want to do music that we have to hire more, right? Why can't we advocate for not only students to, continue in music, but even when they have to leave our programs, and at some point they do have to leave our music programs, the perception can be that they are still lifelong music makers because we have given them assignments and we've taught them how to find music and play it and record it and share with each other and use musical apps. And we've given them assignments where it's okay to just do that without what the teacher wants, but empowering them to be able to play and engage in music on their own. This is what I mean about retaining the tech-savvy generation. We can retain a greater generation of music makers for life, not just for the term of our programs, right? When I think about advocacy and retention, right, we think about the idea of retaining the tech-savvy generation with technology. Who tells our story? Of course, you recognize this graphic as the very end of Hamilton, right? And who lives, who dies, who tells your story? Who tells the story of what we do in music education, right? Is it us banging our heads against the wall trying to advocate? And there's an advocacy session too you can watch on mine. I'll talk more about this. But our students and what they create with technology that is shareable is the greatest point of advocacy. And students they love performing. Have you seen the smiles on your students' faces when they stand up and take that bow at the end of a concert? It's amazing. It's everything, right? We can have that moment when students compose something, record themselves performing something, and share it with others. We need students to share what they do, right? That's what's really important. What do we really want from a retention standpoint? We want more kids starting, more kids staying, more kids musically successful, more kids emotionally successful, right? We don't teach music because we want the next student to go to be a music major and be another music teacher. We will have those students. That is a very small percentage. We want all of our students to be emotionally successful for life. And music is emotion. It is the most pure form, the universal language of expressing emotion through sound and lyric. And it's just something that we've all experienced. That's what we're teaching, right? So let's go beyond just recruiting and keeping them in the band. And let's think about how they can use technology and communicate emotionally through the music they create and perform with each other. Advocating for music education is not just about talking to members of Congress and policy, right? It is not about the research that says students in music who are smarter, you get smarter by doing music. I'm not devaluing that research, but I'm saying that we know music is deeper than that still, right? And advocating for music is not just about trying to know when to advocate. I have to go to the school board. I have to write a letter. You can advocate at any time. The way you approach music making with your students, the way that you have assignments that let students use the music they're creating and recording with technology to share with others, that's advocacy, right? You can advocate any time, right? And so we want to retain this tech-savvy generation. Here's what we do. We reach them in the world in which they live today. We empower them to create music with the technology that exists today. We empower them to share that music with others and engage with each other using that technology. And we let them know that it will be something that's available for life, not just for the life of this music program and the age they're in. And when we do that, we have successfully retained the tech-savvy generation. So, quick commercial. Noteflight Learn is an amazing tool that lets you communicate, collaborate, retain students. It gives you the ability for students to be in a safe online environment that is completely compliant with all data privacy and integrates with Google Classroom and Canvas, Moodle, and other learning management systems. Students have a full music notation editor. They can create music on their own. You can provide instant lessons. Students get their own copies of everything, just like with Google and other tools, right? So it's really easy to get students to share. Students can create templates for each other and share music that way. There's audio recording built in. It's not just about what you compose, but it's sharing your performance of what you compose, right? And of course, for performance assessment. Students can collaborate. There's collaborative tools built right in. There's groups where you can organize students into small groups that they can work on various musical projects. There's integrated performance assessment. Noteflight Learn includes sound check, which is integrated performance assessment right there. It's the only tool where you can compose and flip to performance assessment with a full-featured notation editor and immediate performance. And you can share those. Everything is shareable for obvious reasons that I've already talked about. We have hundreds, now thousands of songs available from Hal Leonard, and we're adding more and more. Integrates your learning management systems. It's affordable. You can use Noteflight Learn with composition and sound check and content, and you can be flexible and choose what students need which tools. So you can purchase only what you need, right? Is this the Progressive insurance commercial, right? Pay for only what you need. But that's exactly how Noteflight's organized. So noteflight.com/learn. Go there, free trial, click free trial, sign up. In under 5 minutes, you will be in a fully functional Noteflight Learn site for 50 students for 60 days. It is a self-service trial. Use it, learn. You will be contacted from our team. We have tons of resources. Also, remember that you can buy and sell music as Noteflight files in Noteflight Marketplace. If you are in need of flexible repertoire right now, you can go find thousands and thousands of musical scores, whether it's pop music or concert band or jazz or choral, that is available that you can actually edit right in your browser for your needs and print all sorts of variations for your students. If you're also arranging music for your students, you can legally sell your music as well. So noteflight.com/marketplace. K5 folks, if you haven't checked out Essential Elements Music Class, check that out. It is an amazing online resource. Everything can be shared with students online or works great in person. eemusicclass.com. There's a free 30-day trial there. And again, other online interactive resources. If you're using Essential Elements band or string methods, there's a phenomenal interactive website that has the ability for students to record themselves playing with multiple backing tracks and have multiple other interactive resources that allow them to truly interact with the music. So it's not just the book where you're playing the notes, but it's an interactive experience. And this is included with every book. So you have this already if you're using Essential Elements. So check out essentialementsinteractive.com. Thank you for watching the full session for retaining the tech-savvy generation. I hope you got some great ideas and you're inspired to find new ways to get your students actively engaged in music making. If you'd like to follow up with me directly, you can follow up at johnmalinzak.com. You can email me at john@noteflight.com. You can tweet me at johnmalinzak. Thank you so much.